and blessings, Amber. My name is Avalon Cameron and I am delighted to be sharing sacred space with you in this way. First and foremost, allow me to welcome you in to my sacred space. Before we get started, I must say the following to you, so please do bear with me. Amber, all of your personal details are kept private and confidential. Under no circumstance do I share any of your personal details with anyone unless, of course, I am required to by the laws that govern my state and country. With this said, once I have completed your private reading, I will be uploading that private video to my Avalon's Apothecary YouTube channel, where it will remain there as an unlisted video. This means that the only way that you are able to access and view that video is if you have the direct link for that video, and that direct link is something that is kept private between you and I. And lastly, if you wish to share this video reading experience with another individual, I have no problem with you doing so, just as long as that individual understands that that which is shared within sacred space is in fact worthy of respect, and that my style and processes are never to be copied, as that would be considered unethical. So with all of that said and done, I want to formally welcome you into sacred space. I'm going to start by preparing the space specifically for your reading. This is something that I like to do before all of my readings. Now, we are going to be doing 2 readings for you today. I'm going to be doing one lot of preparation, and then I'll break this video up into 2 parts and stitch them both together, so you will get the first video, which is the guidance for the beginner witch, which we are doing right now, and then your spirit work session to help you to connect with your intuitive faculties. And that way it's a much more streamlined process for you as the recipient of this service. Okay, so I'm feeling. Maybe it's this one. There we go. All right, so we are going to come in and I'm going to start to really open up that sacred space. I like to do metaphysical maintenance before every one of my readings, and that ensures that the energy is perfect. This is ethically harvested Palo Santo. I'm a huge fan of Palo Santo. I'm South American, comes from my neck of the woods, and as such, it's like I'm able to bring a little piece of home with me. And that's a very, very rare thing when you come from Brazil. There's not too much available to you as a Brazilian outside of Brazil. Nice, feels very nice. Little ash everywhere, such is the nature of things. Okay, Amber, today we are going to be doing your guidance for the beginner witch. First, as I've previously stated, I'm going to be using Soul Cards 2, the Ansata Tarot, and the Bonestone and Earthflesh Tarot. I also have 2 Oracle decks off to the side, which I will reach for towards the end, and I will decide in the moment which one of the 2 decks that I'm going to reach for. At the moment, I have the Wisdom of the Oracle, by Colette Baron-Reid, and then I have the Oracle of Oddities as well. So depending on how the flow of the reading goes, I'll know which one I'm going to be choosing. Now, before we get started, Amber, I just wanted to say that it's really helpful if you can reset your space a little bit when you are watching this video. And what I mean by that is that you are able to shift the energy of your space from the mundane to the magical. This helps to ground and center, to open up your mind, that sphere of consciousness, and to create that open connection. I believe that electronic media such as the camera that you are able to view this video through, so I'm recording it and you are able to see it thanks to this beautiful camera, is what I mean. It's able to really capture a lot of that magic, a lot of that energy. It's so vivid these days, our electronic media, and I like to think that we are able to reach further with that energy in mind. It's also a Mercury in retrograde, so hopefully, fingers crossed, I don't have too many difficulties with this video today. It's always a hassle when you are a person that does a lot of work with tech, and a lot can go wrong during a retrograde, so fingers crossed. Just a nod to Mercury. I feel like we should say that ahead of time. Now, shifting that space, as I was saying, so I got a little bit off track there, sorry about that. Dim the lights, light a candle, bring some maybe a crystal close by if you're into crystals, or if you like to work with incenses or essential oils, perhaps, really create that nice fragrant aroma, something that's relaxing, something that really enables you to just go, that nice, relaxing exhale. It's a beautiful thing. So if you're able to shift that space, then please do so now. I also recommend having a glass of water or a nice drink close by, and definitely a pen and paper. If you're the type of person that owns a journal, then bring your journal on over and settle down. And I want you to take as many notes as you feel is necessary. It's always great to have that, that pen and paper close by, because it enables you to take down not just the suggestions or the thoughts in the moment, but also questions that you might have. And that way, by the end of this reading, if you have a multitude of questions that were not answered, then you can send me those questions in an email and I can answer them to the best of my ability. All right, so let's get started. I think I've explained everything as needed. This is a rather dynamic style of reading, I've got to say. So too is the spirit work session that you got as well, or that you purchased, I should say, not got. That's a weird way of putting it. However, I wanted to say that they are very instructional based. Like, there's a lot that can come out of this. So I want you to be ready to take those notes, and I want you to be ready to see me move, okay? Weird way of putting it, you won't actually see me move, but you're going to see me reach for so many things. You're going to see me reach for resources, for books, my phone, all of these types of things, because I'm going to give you instructions and things to do and things to research and things to connect with and ideas. So this is why it's really good to have that pen and paper close by, because it's like an avalanche once it starts. All right, Amber, without further ado, I'm going to call in my gods, guides, guardians, ancestors, and in my case now the Orisha. And once I've done so, I'll begin shuffling and we will go from there, okay? So just bear with me, make yourself comfortable, ground and center, some deep breaths, call in that energy that you've spent throughout the day, and just really, really be here, okay? Sarava Orisha, Sarava. Sarava Orisha, Sarava. Odoia, Iemanjá, Odoia. Epa rei, Inhansã, epa rei. Ogum, salve meu pai Ogum. Salve Xangô, patrão do centro São João Batista, criada pela minha linda avó, Delcília de Almeida Sussi. Caô, cabecilho. Peço bênçãos de Oxalá. Saravá meu pai Oxalá. E que meus guias me guiam, que minha linha de sangue me guia, que os orixás me guiam. Saravá e Axé. That felt good. All right, I'm going to start off by shuffling soul cards. Soul cards are, I guess, a wealth of resources, a wonderful, wonderful aid for intuitive work. And from soul cards, I'm able to extract a metaphysical maintenance message. Now, metaphysical maintenance is something that I am very, very into. My coven knows this. I tend to push it on them quite a bit. But I do believe that when it comes to metaphysical maintenance, this is a form of spiritual upkeep. When it comes to our everyday life and our physical and our mental selves, we have resources. We've got a lot to lean into, a lot at our disposal. And, you know, if we're sick, we can go to a doctor, and we know as grown-ups what to do to make sure that we are fit and healthy, or, you know, experiencing that state of vitality. And as far as our mental health goes, I should say, it's going to be one of those hard communication days. Thanks, Mercury. Thank you for that. We know that already. But as I was saying, as far as our mental health goes, we know what anxiety is, what depression is. We know that these are things that affect us, and there are things that we can do to assist us in those, you know, times of difficulty. But when it comes to that spiritual side of ourselves, there aren't any support systems. There aren't any fully endorsed government systems to help support us during spiritual crisis, or, you know, the type of ailments that affect the soul and the spirit, the emotional body. And so metaphysical maintenance is something that I feel very passionately about, because it enables us to really add to the upkeep, to the health and wellness that we are engaged in, as far as our physical body goes, as far as our mental health goes, and now as far as our spiritual bodies and our spiritual health goes. So that was a very long-winded way of saying it's spiritual self-care. Okay, maybe next time I'll just skip that and go straight for spiritual self-care. Good grief. Okay, we have one that jumped out. Oh, I like this. Two sides of the self. This is very beautiful. So we have a lot of blues and a lot of yellows here, and a fair bit of green and some purple. This is a really beautiful, there's a definitive line there of yellow and a definitive area of blue here, and then there is a lot of mixing of energy there. So when we're looking at blues, we're looking at our throat center, the way that we communicate both within ourselves and without ourselves. So the way that we choose our words and the way that we choose to convey our feelings towards others, it's the way in which we openly communicate. And then it's our internal monologue as well. So working on that aspect of the self is going to be paramount to enabling you to, you know, choose your words carefully, to understand what it is that you can share or should share, and what you should keep to yourself. There is this beautiful energy of control to be found within the throat. And when we have a really beautifully well-calibrated throat chakra, what happens is we understand that there is this really, really powerful moment of recognition where our silence means more than our words. And when we get to that stage, we know that we have a very good command over our communication centers. And it's a very beautiful thing when that can happen. We also have a lot of solar plex chakra energy coming through here in that yellow. So solar plex is your personality, your sense of self, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you present your personality. It's your self-confidence and, you know, your ability to, you know, to truly live. And it's a very, very beautiful, very powerful, very necessary, very central chakra. And it's at the very center of our being, at our core, essentially. And so working with these two particular energetic power points within the body, and let me just be clear here, Amber, I work with the Hindu chakra system because it is a efficient and, very easy to interpret to a degree, visual map. So I'm talking here about energetic power points in the body, meridians and things of that nature. Now this knowledge, this information isn't just for the Hindu chakra system. The Hindu chakra system is the Indian way of presenting that information, but there's also the aspects of meridians through kinesiology, Parama body talk, acuenergetics, acupuncture, Reiki, anything that works with the energy centers of the body and acknowledgements of the meridians within the body. It just so happens that the Hindu chakra system is perhaps the most well known, and therefore it is easier for me to describe what it is that I'm trying to say to you utilizing the Hindu chakra system. Okay, with that said, what I'm going to recommend that you do is working with I'm going to recommend 2 stones or just 1 stone. Let's start off with the 1 stone. Okay, I want to introduce you to blue kyanite. Blue kyanite is a brilliant stone at helping to align the chakras or the energetic body. It will do so unintentionally, and when done or used with intention, it helps to really open them up as well. So there's alignment and then there's opening. And this beautiful stone can do it all. It is one of those incredible stones to aid you in meditation. So when we are doing metaphysical maintenance, sometimes that requires us to meditate or path work or journey work or lay and receive, all that type of thing. And so to be able to quieten the mind, to still yourself, to remain focused and present and relaxed, blue kyanite is really, really wonderful for that type of thing as well. And it works on all of the primary chakras. So it can be a very effective tool. So rather than having a multitude of tools, you have just one that's very powerful. So that's my first recommendation for you. And my second recommendation for you is something along the lines of, say, let me see if I've got it here. Now that I'm looking for it, I probably don't have it. I seem to have it everywhere else. Let's say I've got some green apatite here. This would be great for the heart. But depending on the color blue, it could work for the throat as well. Lapis lazuli is fantastic. Sodalite is wonderful for the throat. Any blue stone really, but they're the primary that are coming to the forefront of my mind right now. And I've already mentioned blue kyanite there. So being able to access these stones is wonderful. So that's great for the throat. And then for the solar plex, I would recommend something like amber or tangerine, selenite, or citrine, natural citrine, mind you. You can get a lot of dyed citrine, but it's good to have natural citrine. Yellow calcite. There's some really great stones that you can utilize. Now the idea here is you take those stones, the appropriate color for the appropriate chakra that you are working on. You lay down, you shift the energy of your space from the mundane to the magical. Have a candle for healing and for intention close by. You can grab yourself a really beautiful white or a light blue candle, anoint it, inscribe it, and dedicate it to any kind of healing work. Let's call it your metaphysical maintenance or healing candle. You light that, place a glass of water next to it because water is the conduit to the divine. So we want to make sure that our intentions are being sent to the realm of the ancestors, the gods and the spirits. And, create for yourself a little space. Lay down and place the stones on the corresponding energetic power points of your body. Now, before you do this, you are going to need to jump on to a site. I'm going to recommend YouTube because YouTube is free, and you're going to want to find an aid, a sound aid. So I'm going to show you what I mean here. So let's go for... I've put solar plexus chakra healing. Let me see if I can find a really good one. Here we go.
We're always
Excuse the ad.
The more effort we put in, the more we'll get out of life. Okay. But of course
Sorry about that. I'll turn it up a little bit. This is crystal singing bowls. I like crystal singing bowls, Tibetan singing bowls, chanting. I like really natural sounds for this. It's a vibration that you can really feel. And you can find one of these tracks for all of the primary chakras. There are other sounds that you can go for as well. So let's say, for instance, here is more music style. So you would lay down with the stones on the corresponding parts of your body and listen to this track and allow the sound to move through you and really help to calibrate and enhance and open those energy centers. You can also go for something like, let me see, here. This is an ASMR situation.
Hello everybody, and welcome
And she will take you through
for this session.
Doing a Reiki by proxy kind of healing thing. So anything that you can get your hands on. I believe very strongly that when it comes to our metaphysical maintenance, resources are in abundance. It's just that we need to be pointed in the right direction for that. So lay down, listen to these tracks, work with one chakra at a time or all of them all at once. It really depends. Now, what I will say to you here is if you are going to go to the trouble of creating this beautiful metaphysical maintenance session, you may as well work on all of your chakra, all of your energetic centers at once. So you can go out or go into your collection, should you have crystals already available at your disposal. Utilize what you have first. Get something singular like kyanite, because it's less of an investment if you do feel like you need to go out and purchase something. Or choose your stones individually very carefully in accordance with any kind of intuitive work that you're doing. So allow yourself to be drawn to them. One thing that I will say when it comes to the acquisition of crystals is please choose ethical sources. Crystals and their mining practices are really unethical these days, and it's important for us to know exactly where our crystals are coming from and to ensure that we're using these, metaphysical tools that essentially are not filled with trauma in any way. So, little metaphysical maintenance. Now, one thing else that I would like to say is connection with water. Water rituals, water ritual baths and things of that nature are going to be very, very good for you. A good ritual bath is very soothing to the aura. It's very soothing to the body. So Personally, I like to work with, black soap, and I give myself a really good spiritual cleanse. I wash my hair, I wash my face, I wash every inch of my body with this beautiful African black soap filled with beautiful, beautiful herbs. The brand of soap that I personally use is Oshun soap. You can also use ritual waters, create for yourself a ritual bath. So take, for instance, you could have a nice bowl. So you would prepare this nice little bowl, and in it you would put purified water. Then you would put herbs such as lavender, melissa or lemon balm, which is a very, very good healing herb. White rose petals if you have them. Let me see, I'm just looking up at my shelf there. A little frankincense oil if you have it. And then a couple of teaspoons of Florida water, and let's say a quarter cup of coconut milk, and then mix it all in together and really allow it to marinate and steep. And when you're ready, pour it over yourself and really rub it into your skin. It's really fantastic to do outdoors. So underneath, the sky, nature, barefoot on the ground. If you can, of course, if you're in a place where it's snowing right now, that may not be the best option for you, but it is something that you can do and allow yourself to marinate. If you have a bath, you can soak in these ingredients in your bath. So there are options for you. Now, when we're looking at two halves of ourselves as well, as can be perceived here within your soul card, there is a chance that a little shadow work is necessary. So I would recommend doing a little bit of an exploration of shadow work and seeing if there are areas of yourself that you would like to bring illumination to, and then integration. Okay, so that covers your metaphysical maintenance. I'm going to come in now with the Ansata Tarot. This is a Majors Only deck, and this will set the tone for your reading. So it's the overarching theme. You can look at the Ansata that way. I like to describe it as such. When we're using a Majors Only deck, or when we're doing a split deck reading or something to that effect, we're pulling the heightened energy from the majors, okay? And you can look at it as though this Major Arcana card is like a photo filter. So on Instagram, when you're uploading a photo, or if you're playing around with Lightroom or any other kind of, photo app, what happens is you have the baseline photo and then you put a filter over the top of it and it changes the photo. It doesn't completely transform it, but it does change the photo. At the end of the day, if you've taken a photo of a piano and you put a filter on it, it's still a photo of a piano. However, it has a nice color, or it's brought out a little bit more texture or something to that effect. So it's the same thing, only with an energy and influence over the top of it, the way that it is presented. So that is how I like to describe utilizing a Major Arcana card as a header in a reading. And now you know. This is fantastic. We have the Magician. Okay, so we're working with the energy of magic, manifestation, development of skill, confidence, yes. So this is a fantastic opening card for your beginner witchcraft reading. So the energy of the Magician is so intense. It is pure magic. It is pure manifestation. It draws down from the realm of the ether and brings it into fruition. That is the essence of manifestation at the end of the day. It is about skill. It's about being adept at something. So this is about refining, and in an overall situation, it's asking you to really dig deep and refine an element to find that skill set, okay? So we're going to come in now with our beautiful bone stone. Alrighty, so we have the Knight of Pentacles, Judgment, the Four of Cups, the Sun, the Nine of Swords, the Page of Swords, the Three of Swords, and the Ten of Pentacles, okay? So we have a really good mix of cards here. Very, very interesting. So with the Knight of Pentacles, we're looking at a court card in the realm of earth. Earth is very practical. Earth represents resources. But as an archetypal energy, the Knight of Pentacles is very pragmatic, very practical, also very driven, very dedicated. When the earth is an influence, as is the case here, when we are opening up your reading, the earth is an influence. You open with earth, you end with another very, very positive earth cards. So it suggests a call to the earth, and it suggests a tradition. Okay, earth is just a beautiful, beautiful energy to work with, and it is calling you towards an earth-centric spiritual tradition. Now, in this modern world that we live in, the word tradition appears to be a bit of a dirty word. Folks don't seem to like the concept of tradition, choosing eclecticism instead. I find modern day eclecticism to be vastly in tatters. This is my own personal perspective, but I do think that there is a lot of homogenization of ancient texts and, traditional practices, and it's a case of I just make it up as I go along. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not eclecticism, that's chaos magic. Chaos magicians, they work on a theory that they just, wherever there is energy and intention, that's where they're going to go. So they can really, really do some pretty interesting and spectacular things within the context of chaos magic. It's a complex system. I'm not trying to trivialize it. It's a very complex tradition and practice. But at the end of the day, it is its own thing. Whereas eclecticism now, it just, I guess it feels lazy. As a person that has been practicing for a very long time, the way that people describe themselves as eclectic either undersells what it is that they practice or presents their practice as lazy and choppy and all over the shop without any kind of cohesive synergy or flow. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone is entitled to practice whatever it is that they want. If it brings them joy, then that is, I guess, at the very core, that's the most important thing. Your spirituality, your practice is meant to really anchor you and make you feel joy and make you feel a sense of belonging and connection. And that is something that is vital. However, when it comes to eclecticism versus tradition, there is a lot of room to be disrespectful. And I'm not saying that eclectics are disrespectful, but there is a lot of room to be disrespectful because you may come across certain remnants of practices and things of that nature and not really understand where it is that they come from, but because the vast majority are practicing it, so too do you, in which case you might not even know that you're culturally appropriating. You might not even know that you're partaking in some kind of a detrimental practice to either the environment or, some other organization that I probably don't even know of yet. So it's really, really a choice. When we're eclectic, we have a lot at our disposal, and that's definitely true. I have some really beautiful practitioner friends that are eclectic, but they do a very good job of being thorough. And I guess because you are self-guided in these pursuits, it's up to you to be very thorough. So if you're going to be eclectic, be thoroughly eclectic in that way, but be very thorough with the acquisition of the information that you are, picking up and learning and things of that nature. But the opposite side of the coin is tradition. Now, tradition isn't fixed in a sense. Tradition is tradition, and you can enter a tradition, spend time there, and then leave that tradition if it does not fit you. But what you are going to get from a traditional standpoint is a very good base layer to your practice, very good knowledge, very good understanding of, practices and rituals and philosophies and ideas from a traditional standpoint. Now, there are many traditions, and you can go from one tradition to another should you choose to, spending a little bit of time in each. But what you are going to be doing then is getting that really great amount of information so that you understand practices from a very fundamental level. Now, when it comes to the Knight of Pentacles, practicality is everything, tradition is everything, and movement through traditions is very, very important there. And so seeking out a traditional practice to explore, to understand, and giving yourself a good amount of time to explore that practice. I'm not talking about a couple of weeks, I'm talking about a month to a year. There is this beautiful year and a day thing that they do within modern day Wicca. And the concept of the year and a day is a means of allowing a neophyte a way to understand if the practice or the path that they are intending on walking is in fact a good fit for them. So they've got a year and a day to decide that. But it also gives the coven a really good idea of, what this, dedicant is all about and whether or not they'd be a good fit for the coven. So it's a dual purpose kind of opportunity. So I'm a big believer in the year and a day, and you can oversee your own year and a day study if that is something that you would like. And the reason why I say year and a day is because when we're looking at tarot through time, fire is days, air is weeks, water is months, and earth is years. So a year and a day progression through a traditional practice seems to be a good fit for you. Now, how to decide? How to decide? Well, when we've got judgment here, it indicates an initiation. This card was based on an initiation, on a traditional sort of more Wiccan style or traditional witchcraft style initiation. Very Gardnerian in its own way. Gardnerian Wicca, that is. That's its own tradition. But what I was going to say here is within Judgment and the Knight of Pentacles, you have the option to choose an initiatory tradition, so a tradition that requires an initiation, or you could do a self-initiation or a guided initiation for that matter, whatever suits you best. One other thing that I wanted to say is that to assist you to choose, I would take a piece of paper, rip it up into little pieces, and then write some really interesting traditions on there. So let's say, for instance, Hoodoo is its own type of tradition. So you could write Hoodoo down, or you could write Wicca down, or you could write traditional witchcraft, or you could write chaos magic, you could write Ifa, like anything that you want, but it has to be on the basis of what it is that you are curious to practice, okay? So if we're going earth-centric, then folk magical practices are probably the most suited. So anything that's very earth-centric and very, focused on the earth. In which case, modern paganism, reconstructionist traditions. I'm a folk magical practitioner and a spiritist, so I go the line of the Odisha, and that works for me, but that keeps me very anchored in earth and spirit. And so what you want to find is something that really, excites you. Write those down on a piece of paper. If it's only one, then you have your answer already. But if there's a couple that really tweak your fancy, put it into a little bowl, mix them around, pull one, and accept the information that has come to you. Ask the ancestors and spirits to bless and to guide you in the right direction, and whichever you choose is going to be the thing that you dedicate yourself to for the next year and a day. Intense, right? Am I right? Oh, yes. Judgment is the epiphany. It's the moment of recognition. I like to see judgment as the quickening, the moment where we start to acknowledge, experience, and feel the call to magic. So the quickening is that awakening to the magical realm, the magical world, the supernatural. Typically speaking, it relates to those moments of pure magic and recognition. So those moments that occur that make you realize that magic is real. They're subtle, they're personal, they're effective, and they make you feel as though magic is real. Wow, that wasn't just a synchronicity. Wow, I can't believe I saw that. I can't believe I felt that. I can't believe I dreamt that. Was that a sign? Wow, I just got a sign. Like these moments where the other world, the spirit world, the world of magic is speaking to you. They're the moments. The epiphany, that's the moment. So it's the quickening. It's when everything comes to a head. We have the Four of Cups, and the Four of Cups is talking about evading boredom. So the Four of Cups is complacency, and it can really indicate boredom. So you want to make sure that whatever it is that you choose, it's not going to make you feel a little bit like spiritual slumpy. Okay, so you want to make sure that as you are designing your practice, your year in a day, that you've drawn out for yourself a little curriculum and a step-by-step type of thing. Make it really exciting for yourself. You're in charge. So you want to go things like the introduction, so the history of whatever practice you're studying. Then the fundamentals. Okay, so for every tradition there are fundamentals. There's fundamentals as far as pantheons, there's fundamentals as far as botanical magic, green witchcraft, there's fundamentals as far as divination or spirit work or color magic or, the biosphere or anything like that. There are fundamentals to every practice. And so as you move through, make sure that you give yourself an opportunity to explore the exciting as well. You don't just save all the exciting things until last. So, to ward off potential boredom, we have the sun here, and the sun is about celebration. And I really like the sun as a symbol of success, of healing, and definitely of celebration. Accomplishment, expansion, and achievement are all felt within the sun. And this is a really beautiful sign to say that, to signify that it's going to be quite beneficial for you. Whatever it is that you choose to engage in is going to be quite beneficial to you. There's a sense of community with the sun. My beautiful sun card here in the bone stone is a Beltane celebration. And Beltane is the maypole. It's it's the coming together. It's the Celtic Fire Festival. And it's a beautiful time to get together and to celebrate. And so ensure that there are, salubrious occasions throughout your year. So that may mean that you would like to integrate seasonal celebrations or the Wheel of Eight, which is the Witch's Wheel or the Sabbath Wheel, which is 8 festivals. Or you might just like to work with, cultural celebrations of whatever geographical location you are immersed in. Or you may want to work with the seasons, the turning of the seasons, which means quarter festivals or 4 festivals throughout the year. So make sure that there is this sense of salubrious, and you may want to find community, because whenever we are, really dedicating ourselves to something, or we're exploring something, we're learning something, we're getting into something, having community there that is also connected to that very thing that we are, exploring can be incredibly helpful and really, really inspiring. This is why witches like covens and open circle gatherings. Not everyone does, of course. There's lots of solitary out there. But for the most part, we need community to assist us in different phases of our practice. There are open circle gatherings. I used to run these beautiful open circle gatherings up north, and there was a lot of solitary practitioners, but they would come for the Sabbath celebrations and interact with other practitioners and just talk and exchange ideas and practices, exchange and barter and goods and things of that nature. It's really, really fun to have community. And it also helps to aliven your practice. When you hear what others are doing, or, a great book or a great deck, or, a beautiful location where you could go and wild harvest herbs, or something that you tried within your practice that was very, very successful, having these types of conversations helps to really inspire and create that excitement and that enthusiasm. It also helps you to make friends. We have the 9 of Swords here, and this is addressing fears. Okay, so within the practice of the craft, whenever we are beginning our practice of the craft, fear can be a true stopper, a very, very, very powerful deterrent. And when we dabble in the craft, we oftentimes come up against things that can really create that fear within us. Dabbling is disrespectful and it tends to piss off the spirits. And so people who dabble consistently end up in really awkward situations. Not all of them are bad, but some of them are. And so it's really important to, again, do that due diligence and understand that fear has a very, very necessary place within the craft, and that fear keeps you honest, and fear keeps you grounded, and fear keeps you centered, and it keeps you respectful. There is a lot that we don't know about when it comes to the craft. A lot in the realm of spirits, a lot in, in the genus Loki, in beautiful geographical locations. There are hauntings, there are baneful herbs, the poison path. There are so many practices that can cause fear within the craft. And that's a very, very good and healthy thing to have. That healthy fear is great. But if we're experiencing too much of it, too much anxiety, then we need to be able to disassemble that knot of fear and that knot of confusion and bring awareness and wisdom to that. So typically we fear what we don't know. By understanding and knowing what it is that we fear, some of that fear is alleviated. So make sure that when you start to experience those fears, you pull back, you take the time to explore whatever it is that is causing you that fear and learn as much as you possibly can about it so that you can truly detangle that. And if it's something that really just sits with you as like, nope, I'm not going to do that, that is a fear, then you can totally sidestep that. You can totally sidestep that. As a practitioner, a long-standing practitioner and a hereditary witch, I like to sidestep cemetery work. Lots of witches like to wander through the cemetery. I was raised very differently. And not only that, my spirits, my ancestors, my spirits, my working spirits are not cemetery spirits. And so I feel very uneasy taking my spirits into the cemetery. They don't know the cemetery. They don't like the cemetery. The cemetery is a place for different types of spirits, for different type of work. And when you are a very, very sensitive type of medium, going into a cemetery exposes you to a whole range of situations that you needn't be exposed to. So I don't like to do a lot of cemetery work. I do from time to time, depending on the situation. It's not that I hands down don't do it. It has to be a very bloody good reason for me to do it, and then I will. But there's lots of protocols that I need to put into place, lots of things that I need to do before I walk into a cemetery to ensure that my spirits are okay. So I sidestep that as a practice. It's something that I know that, and I sidestep it as a practice. And so it's all about understanding what it is that you can do, what you want to do. It's understanding your fears, it's understanding your apprehensions and your anxieties. The more information you have, the more wisdom you are able to cultivate, and the more of an understanding of those fears you'll be able to access. Another thing here is we have the Page of Swords. The Page of Swords is our magical student. This is young Merlin. Did you know that? This is young Merlin. And so we have here an experimental experience. So the student who needs to experiment. This is a very, very good lesson in describing to you something that happens within the community of witches a lot. And that is that witches become reliant on learning. We become reliant on books, on blogs, on YouTube videos to teach us certain things, right? We become reliant. We read, we ingest all of this beautiful wisdom and all of this information. And then what happens is we don't put any of it to use. We just consistently bring it in, we consume, we bring it in, we learn more. But knowledge on its own without practical application can never be wisdom. So you just have a lot of things that you've read, but not a lot of experiences cultivated from the things that you've read. You've not put that knowledge to good use, and therefore it can't become wisdom. It doesn't become practical learned wisdom. So it's really important to understand that experimenting is necessary. So taking what you are reading and putting it into action is going to give you experience like nothing else will. So learning as you go to integrate what it is you're learning and putting it into practical applications, this will ensure that you are building up a magical repertoire worthy of our beautiful magician, and you're able to really understand and tweak practices. This is the only way that you can understand how things actually work. So we read about rituals all the time. I've initiated a lot of practitioners, and I've overseen a lot of grander rituals, and I have come across practitioners that they know what a charcoal disc is. They know that to light it, you need to put it to fire. But other than that, and then they think that they know. But they don't realize that in order to light a charcoal disc that you need tongs. That to light a charcoal disc, you need to keep your hand somewhat away from it because it sparks, because it's filled with saltpeter. They don't know these types of things because that very simple thing of lighting a charcoal disc seems like anyone can do that. But charcoal discs can explode. If you don't want to touch a charcoal disc or put your hand anywhere near it, you can pop it on top of an electric stove, and it will heat up slowly as it does so. You can heat it up in a different situation, hold it to the flame of a candle. You know that you're not going to be able to light it with a match because you need a more consistent, steady flame. So these are things that you learn by doing. And if you never do it, then you'll have a hell of a time when the time comes to do it. So by putting what it is that you're reading about, what it is that you're learning into practical use, that is when you will learn. You haven't learnt because you've read it. You've learnt because you've read it and you've put it into use. And that's the message from the Page of Swords, who is very, very, very invested in learning, but also in the practical application, in innovation, in taking what they are learning and putting it into use in a way that is unique to them. So that is another aspect that is worth mentioning. It's you define your craft by making it fit you. And the Page of Swords can teach you that. The Three of Swords is that shadow, that sorrow. And we briefly discussed shadow work in your soul cards, but it looks like there may be some kind of ancestral situation. So here's how we're going to do this. Where are you? No, I think I've got it next to me. I'm going to recommend this book right here. This is Honoring Your Ancestors, and this is Chapter 2, Healing Ancestral Trauma, Sorrow and things of that nature from an ancestral perspective, because they can at times hinder our magic. If you're wanting to build up a rapport with magic, then it's very, very necessary to get to know your ancestors. So that is a very, very good book for that. And one thing that I'm going to recommend to you I feel like I should recommend to you working with fluorite and rosemary. Really good study stone fluorite. Rosemary is very good for memory. And making a really nice rosemary wreath. This is the remnants of a rosemary wreath. It's lost a lot of its leaves, but it's the stalk, and I keep it in a protective area. So with my crowfoot. So there's things that you can do. You can make really nice protective talismans for yourself. But it's good to have, for your study especially, to have some rosemary close by, maybe some rosemary essential oil and some fluorite. Really good study stone, really good at helping you to cement what it is that you are learning. And then we have the Ten of Pentacles, and the Ten of Pentacles is unity. It's coming together as a family unit, as a tribe, if you will. And so this is bringing things together. This is creating that beautiful synergy, that that happy, joyous, connected experience. So this suggests that you find your niche, right? It suggests that you find, that your people, your tribe. Oh, I hate that word, but I use it a lot. It's just not my favorite thing. That you find your tribe, people that understand you, that inspire you, a comfortable community that you can really feel a part of. And so this is a very, very good card to complete your journey here. There is so much for you to do. There is so much that you can do as well. And so we are going to definitely go a little deeper in your spirit work session to help you to... I'm going to go for the Oracle of Oddities. I feel like the Oracle of Oddities is calling me. Excuse me. So with the Ten of Pentacles as well, it's that family connection, that familial connection. So it's a feeling of belonging, of finding home. We have opposition here, which is a little bit of what we experience here within your soul card. Opposition. So integration of opposites. Again, we've got that shadow work calling into the in the background. We have knowledge here. The cultivation of knowledge, which is something that we have already discussed. Really making sure that you put what you are learning to very, very good use. Separation. Separation is a very, very interesting card because it can sometimes suggest the necessity to compartmentalize. So take, for instance, the practice of witchcraft is not necessarily completely socially acceptable. It's unfortunate, but we've come a long way, so no complaints here. However, it's learning to measure what you say, what you divulge to certain people, and that means that you need to separate aspects of yourself. So for instance, I do the work that I do, but when I'm at school, nobody knows. When I'm at my kids' school, nobody knows. I'm just me, mum, of 3 children picking up my kids at school. It's not a conversation that I have with others unless I feel that they are amenable to that conversation or it's relevant to that conversation. And so it's learning how to separate yourself. That also means that you can control what it is that you are saying and doing. So enthusiasm in the craft can be the detriment to a neophyte, honestly. I have seen, beautiful young witches. And when I mean young witches, I'm not talking about age, but people new to the craft. I've seen beautiful young witches get so enthusiastic because they've had that quickening, that awakening, that real spiritual experience. And then they try to thrust that on other people. And, tell them things that they haven't asked to know about. I had this intuitive experience. I can see your aura. Or, they get so enthusiastic about what it is that they have experienced, the skill that they have, or the knowledge that they have, or their ability to do something that they enthusiastically thrust it on other people. And this is crossing a boundary. This is really crossing a boundary. And so it's really important to have those strong boundaries, those firm boundaries in place, and to never try to push your craft, your knowledge, your enthusiasm, your excitement onto another person without that person being willing to accept. And you know that by the feel of things. You know that by conversation, by knowing the person. And so separation is about understanding the difference between when to speak, when to share, and when to stay silent. Again, we're coming back to that communication aspect that we talked about within your metaphysical maintenance practice. And so, Amber, we have reached the end of your guidance for the beginner witch. So high points, year in a day study, manifestation, learning that skill set. The magician was your ruling card. Fantastic. Initiatory tradition, the quickening, the awakening. Stave off boredom by ensuring that you've created for yourself a really beautiful arrangement of themes to explore. Celebration, handling that fear, that healthy fear. Experimenting, making sure that what you are learning, you are also putting into practice. a potential ancestral situation that needs to be attended to. So this very much felt like an ancestral experience, because there's no reason to have this sorrow or this trauma here. In a relationship reading, it would have been something more to do with a person, but it feels like this is an old wound. And because we'd already come up with shadow work at the beginning for your metaphysical maintenance, it's repeating itself here again. And then we have the family card right next to it. So it suggests getting square with your ancestors, as well as finding that tribe. And that could be your physical peoples or your ancestral peoples as well. So, Amber, we have reached the end of your guidance for the beginner witch reading. I'm going to come back in a second and reset the space for your spirit work session. So we won't have to go over all of the bits and pieces that we did in the start. I'm not going to be calling in my gods, guides, guardians, ancestors. They are already here and we are already going to be set up and ready for you. So I hope you've enjoyed this first reading. Let's get into the next one. Mwah! Hello again, Amber. Welcome back. We are now going to start your spirit work session to help you to ignite your intuitive faculties. So seeing as we are conducting this reading straight after your guidance for the beginner witch, I think the both of them are going to integrate really well together. So I hope you're still set up at your end. You've had a little break, maybe got yourself a cup of tea or a glass of wine, depending. But please make sure that you have that pen and paper close by. Make sure you have that drink, and again, make sure that that space is really well set for this experience, for all the reasons that I mentioned in the first reading video. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give the space a little bit of a zhuzh. From one reading to another, we don't need to do too much metaphysical maintenance because the energy is already here. It's crisped, or it's crisp, not to. It's been well worked. And I just want to make sure to uplift the energy a little bit. And that feels good. I might... just light a little bit of rope incense. It's always nice to do so. We're just going to use a little bit of Palo Santo, just to zhuzh the place, you know, just to activate it, lift it. Nothing heavy-handed. Now, I'm not sure if I told you the stats for the day in the Guidance to the Beginner Witch video, but today is Tuesday the 9th of February 2021. The moon is waning in the sign of Capricorn, and we are conducting this reading during the astrological hour ruled by Saturn. So this spirit work session is one of those super dynamic ones. The Guidance to the Beginner Witch can be. Yours wasn't super dynamic, but there was a little something. This one here is going to feel a lot different. We are not going to be necessarily relying too much on the cards per se, not as we did within the Guidance to the Beginner Witch. And this is a lot more focused, okay? This is a lot more spirit-led, a lot more interactive. So I have my spirit work stones here. I have my pendulum should I need it here, which I don't typically use it very much for this particular spirit work session, but a lot more for the deity one. And then I have the 3 decks here that I'll be reaching for throughout the course of this reading. On the floor, I have a mountain of books. Actually, one of my books has very unceremoniously fallen over. So I have a mountain of books on either side of me. Like, it is actually quite ridiculous. Both sides, on the floor, mountains of books. So... we are going to get straight into it, and I'm going to start by, let me just feel it. Gonna use a little spirit oil. Okay, that feels a little bit better. That feels really nice. Okay. We're going to start off with soul cards. Similar style and structure to your reading. This is about your intuition, how we can really ignite, awaken, focus it, nurture it, encourage it. We have like this bird person. Bird are typically our messengers. We have a spiral. Looks like a moon. And then where are you? I think it's Ing. I don't like that one. Generosity, Gerbois. Ancestor. I'm looking at the runes, just in case you were wondering what I was doing. Orange is the sacral. Spirit. Okay. The bird symbolizes the messenger. So this is about the ability to receive messages. So at times this could talk about, not at times, but in this particular instance, we're looking at our clairs. Clairaudience is the ability to hear spiritual messages. Birds have a call. They are also in a visual capacity, so there could be clear vision, as in or something to do with omen reading specifically, but birds happen to be instrumental in the way that they carry their message. So flight, sound. Very interesting. We have the spiral here, which suggests a cyclical thing. Now, and then something akin to the double helix. So this to me suggests a hereditary skill set. So something that may be shared with another person in your familial line, in your blood lineage. We have moon here, so a little crescent moon, almost like the nipple is the crescent moon there, and the moon obviously represents the feminine divine. So I feel like this is a gift or a skill that has passed through your female line. Then we have here the double helix, DNA link, but I've also broken that down into Gyebois, which is generosity or the gift, or Thala, which is the ancestral rune. And we have sacred and we have spirit here, which are two words that came through as I was, sacral and sacred spirit. So the sacral is that the particular chakra center that is just above the pubic bone. It relates to manifestation, it relates to power, to creativity, to fire, to sexuality and sensuality, movement, and all of that type of ambitious energy, very fiery. So I want you to be able to work with and calibrate that. Now, do you recall how I said to you in the guidance to the beginner witch in your metaphysical maintenance there, that you can take specific stones and crystals? Well, I want you to take that in practical advice and put it into use here. One of the stones that I'm going to recommend for you is, excuse me as I reach over, is carnelian. Carnelian is a fantastic stone for the sacral. You can also use bloodstone. Red jasper is very, very good. These are very grounding and centering to that particular energy center. So very, very nice. I'm going to pull up here. Okay, no, that's the wrong one. Okay, let's go. So, here's that sacral. This is the crystal healing. Very nice, isn't it? So similar thing to that. I also want to recommend for your clairaudience stones such as cavernsite or blue kyanite. Iolite is also very, very good. Apatite, very, very good. In fact, let's have a look in here. Yep. Here we go, apatite. This mineral can be used to stimulate the intellect and to promote realization that one's strength occurs through both spiritual avenues and via love, hence dissolving aloofness and negativity. Use apatite while working with other crystals use of apatite while working with other crystals will facilitate results with greater ease, since the apatite enhances the coming to results. Apatite is related to service and to the development of the humanitarian pursuits. It is attuned to healing, storing information, communicating, balancing energy, and teaching. It enables one to both recognize and experience information, which can be used individually and collectively. So this, when you are channeling and when you are experiencing one of the flares for your clairs, your rational brain will second guess this. So it will say, oh, I didn't hear that, or what was that? And then your rational brain will allow you to brush it off because there's no reasonable explanation. It could be anything, and so you deviate. By using a stone such as apatite, you'll be able to understand in the moment whether or not it is something that you need to give your attention to. One can use apatite as an interface point between the consciousness and matter in order to practically apply one's insight and powers of manifestation. It is extremely useful in the expansion of knowledge and in the disclosure of the truth to freedom. It can help to integrate, coordinate, and balance the emotional, intellectual, physical, and etheric body. It can also help to eliminate overactivity, underactivity, blockage, or congestion from any of the chakras. It can be used to stimulate the development of clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and the awareness of the Devic worlds. It can further connection with, I hate to say this, UFOs, and can provide access to past life insights and telepathy. So the past life aspect, the development of clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, is what we're here for. When applied with spiritual discipline, apatite can be used to assist one in the development of deeper states of meditation and reflection, yin-yang balancing, raising of kundalini energy, self-insight, inner clarity, peace, and oneness with the higher self. Apatite enhances creativity, which is another stone that's another aspect that's fantastic for that sacral chakra work. It is a stone of the future and will bring knowledge to those attuned to it by clearing mental confusion. It truly awakens the finer inner self. Wearing or carrying apatite has successfully produced hunger suppression and okay, we're not going to go into that, but you get my drifts. Okay. Ooh, okay. Now, cavensite is another stone that you can use for that type of thing as well. Okay, so I just got a little message from Spirit here. In regards to birds as messengers for you, Amber, songbirds will mean one thing and the corvus will mean something altogether. So learning to discern between the two calls. To do this, you are going to want to grab yourself your psychic book. Okay, if you don't have one, you can make one. Journal, notebook, whatever. Anything that is pronounced, anything that you feel is unusual, anything that stands out could be a sign. Oh, that's unusual. There's a coincidence. There's a pattern. Why is that there? What a weird shape to find. Why am I finding this in this particular instance? So anything that's out of sorts, you write that down and then pay very, very close attention to it in the sense of, were there birds in the vicinity? So if you heard corvus or really nice little, songbirds, put that down in your note, say what it was, what the situation was, what the bird call was, and then wait to see what happens, because the only way that you are going to be able to figure this out is through experience. So what occurrence takes place thereafter? And that is when you are going, is it positive, is it negative? Is one a warning, one a blessing? Is one a message of sorts? Is another one like a nudge from spirit? Like, sort it out. Good experimentation will lead you down that path. Oh, Hierophant. Oh, damn. All right. Well, you got the Year in a Day traditional studies in your last reading, thanks to the Knight of Pentacles, and also at the end of that reading was the Ten of Pentacles. Here we open with our most fixed major arcana card, fixed for Taurus, I might add, and that is the Hierophant. The Hierophant is the intermediary between the realm of the gods and the realm of man. So this is the middle point. This suggests a channel, okay? So this suggests channeling. Now, within this context of clairaudience, let's say it's clairaudience, okay? What you do is you channel that information. How can I explain this to you? Because it's hard. Okay, let me try to explain this to you, Amber. When the clairs flare, when they begin to interact and awaken, what you have is a very unusual circumstance unfolding within you. Now, what happens is you might get the impression of color, you might get the impression of sound, you might get impressions of whatever. It could be colors, it could be space, it could be animals. It just these weird mystical impressions, and they make their way through to the language center of your brain, and then they connect with, you know, a sense. In this case, they'd connect with your auditory senses. So you would hear those impressions as though they are language, words being whispered in your ear, or you can discern them as words. It's a very, very interesting thing that happens, but it comes from these psychic, spiritual impressions that can be translated into sound and words, etc. So it suggests that channeling is a huge ability. Oh, there's a lot of earth-centric stuff here. You're really being pushed down an earth-centric path. We talked about earth-centric folk magical practices, traditions of the earth. You know, we could look at shamanism. You could look at, essentially Wicca is also earth-centric in its way. Traditional witchcraft of the Cornish variety, hoodoo, folk magical practices of all over the world, Slavic witchcraft. Hell, there's so much that you could do. You're being very, very much like pulled into an earth-centric path. Very, very interesting. Okay. I'd like for you to look at making a incense to burn or a hydrosol or an oil, okay? All of this can be turned into an oil or a hydrosol should you choose, but I'm going to present it to you as an incense. So, Eyebright, mental powers, psychic powers. Brewed into a tea and drunk, Eyebright clears the mind and aids the memory. The infusion applied to the eyelids on cotton pads induces magical clairvoyance, but it can be persisted, but it must be persisted in before results are achieved. Carried to increase psychic powers. Also used when you need to see the truth in a matter. So you could turn this into a loose mix powder that can be used as an incense or the filler for a mojo bag, for instance. Okay. Frankincense, protection, exorcism, spirituality. The ancient Egyptians burned frankincense at sunrise to honor Ra. When burned, frankincense releases powerful vibrations which not only uplift those of the area but also drive out all evil and negativity. Frankincense is therefore used in incenses of exorcism, protection, purification, and consecration. It is also burned to induce visions and aid meditation, and is added to sachets for luck, protection, and spiritual growth. Rosemary may be used as a substitute for frankincense. And then we have mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris. Sacred to Artemis, element earth, planet Venus, gender feminine. Mugwort in shoes to gain strength during long walks or runs. For this purpose, pick mugwort before sunrise, saying, Tolem de Artemisia nella sus sin nivea. A pillow stuffed with mugwort and slept upon will produce prophetic dreams. Mugwort is also burned with sandalwood or wormwood during scrying rituals, and a mugwort infusion is drunk, sweetened with honey, before divination. The infusion is also used to wash crystal balls and magic mirrors, and mugwort leaves are placed around the base of a ball or beneath it to aid in psychic workings. When carrying mugwort, you cannot be harmed by poison, wild beasts, or sunstroke, according to ancient tradition. In a building, mugwort prevents elves and evil signs from entering, and bunches of mugwort are used in Japan by the Aeneas to exorcise spirits of disease who are thought to hate the odor. In China, it is hung over doors to keep evil spirits from the building. Mugwort is also carried to increase lust and fertility, to prevent backache, and to cure disease and madness. Placed next to the bed, it aids in achieving astral projection. So there are the 3 ingredients. Now let me see. Interesting. Two through two. Not what I was looking for. I was hoping to find, and I cannot find it. Anyway, that was a waste. I was looking for something, but I could not find it. Nevertheless, making that incense of Eyebright, and you may want to stretch that out to creating for yourself a nice mojo bag or a charm, a carrying charm. Something small, something that you can put into your pocket or your bra or something. Trying to find an example. Ooh, I was just thinking about her. So water is your element of spirit. Air is your shadow element. So in the terms of this reading, water appears to be your power element. Earth is your foundational element, your mother element, but here we have your power element, water, and your shadow element, air. We have the Ten of Swords. We don't read the tarot in spirit work in the same way as we do within the context of a tarot reading. So we have Emanjá here. So she is the Rainha do Mar. I'm a daughter of Emanjá, so I work very closely with Orisha Emanjá. And she is very akin to an archetypal Mother Mary. She is Our Lady of Navigators. And in Portuguese it's Nossa Senhora dos Navegantes. Okay, and so this is about direction, it's about navigation. So she's going to give you direction. The water element is going to give you direction. The archetype is going to give you direction. So it's a very, very beautiful call to nurture, I suppose. The Five of Cups is one of those we never forget. We never forget where we've come from. We never forget the sadness. We never forget. So there's this lingering memory there that brings sorrow. Again, this feels ancestral. It feels like it could be very ancestral. So it appears you have a lot of work to do on your ancestral side. The Ten of Swords here. It's the end of something. The end of life as we know it. In a spiritual sense, not in a catastrophic demise of the planet sense. Let's see what your spirits have to say. I got a very clear, very, very, very clear visual of a woman on the back of a horse fully charging with a knife in her hand, held in a very specific way, but with a knife in her hand, like really charging. Like full warrior woman. Now I don't know if that was a past life of yours or an ancestral impression. So I'd love to hear where your ancestry comes from, because it felt very Caucasian, so potentially Nordic, Celtic, Scottish, Irish, you know, somewhere there. We have the Hanged Man here. And the Hanged Man relates to Odin and the sacrifice that he made in order to learn the runes. So he hung for 9 days, 9 nights from the Yggdrasil tree, offered his eye and all of that kind of mythological goodness. And he hung there suspended, and that's when the wisdom of the runes came to him. So he teaches us that we need to sacrifice. We need to make a sacrifice before we can really get to the bottom of something. So sometimes we need to sacrifice our preconceived notions. Sometimes we need to sacrifice our versions of reality. So this is definitely true for the Ten of Swords. We are taught something. We are socially conditioned. That's how human beings are. We know that the world is round, unless you're a flat earth theory type of person, but for most of us, the earth is round. The sky is blue up until the time it's space. Space doesn't have gravity. We just know things. But at any point, that knowledge could shift and change forever. Because at one point, everybody knew that the world was flat. Everybody knew that God created man and evolution had nothing to do with it. We have evolved in our understanding, but in order to truly release what was so ingrained as reality, we have to sacrifice that in order to shift and to, I guess, awaken a different type of belief. So a lot of it can be sacrificing of beliefs, the way things should be or have been, pulling all of that apart and embracing something from a totally different perspective. And the Hanged Man brings you that, a totally different perspective. He's literally upside down. He's suspended. So he gets to see the world from an upside down perspective. So it shows that by shifting your perspective, the world can truly change. Now your little message here is that time moves in cycles. It is the enduring ebb and flow of life, an age-old rhythm. Before you begin, you need to break it all down. Take it back and see from an entirely new perspective. And then I've written there, maybe that's a question mark that relates to a question mark. I'm feeling like there is more to this. One thing I wanted to mention here is spirals and crescents, okay? Because they're things that I saw in your soul card, spirals and crescents. Spirals are easy to draw, right? They are, but have you thought about how you draw your spiral? I have included this shape here because I want you to consider two methods of drawing spirals. In one method, you start at the internal point and slowly circle out from it, expanding out. The inverse is to start drawing a curve and continue drawing inside of it, smaller and smaller. These tend not to look different, but feel different as well when you draw them. The inside out spiral feels expansive and open, seemingly reaching outward towards infinity. The outside in spiral slowly constricts upon itself. It's contained and definite. Which spiral you draw depends on what your goal will be. Crescents. Overlapping. Use a shape you want for your crescent. You can also sketch out circles to get your main outside line. If you like the crescent to be inside, ink the works for you and erase the rest of the lines. There is a little breakdown of these symbols. Wish I had time to go through the whole thing with you here. I'm going to recommend this book to you, Amber, Sigil Witchery. This is Laura Tempers Zarkroff. And as far as drawing symbolism, which seems relevant to somebody who is, accessing their psychic sight, sound, their clairs, understanding how to decipher symbolism is really important, especially for omen reading and for acknowledging, sacred patterns in the landscape and your biosphere and things like that. So arming yourself with that knowledge is very, very good. I also feel, and this is just coming to me really strongly, I also feel that you would do very well, and don't ask me why. I think this is coming from Emanja, at tea leaf reading. It's an old art, and some people still practice it today, but there is such there's something to it there for you. So again, learning to interpret symbols. Try your hand at tea leaf reading. This is very, very interesting. Just moving to see my clock. I'm going to pull a card from the Antique Anatomy Oracle, but I wanted to go over this, okay? So birds as messengers, I really want you to be able to tune in. You're going to need to create some kind of quantitative study in order to determine songbird from Corvus, working with apatite and other high vibration stones to help you to open up that psychic center and develop those intuitive faculties, working with Gerbois or Orthala. Okay, so if you don't know, if you're not familiar with runes, okay, Gerbois is an equal armed cross. Orthala is like this. Gerbois, Orthala. The gift, the ancestor. So we have sacral activation. So expressing yourself creatively is going to help tremendously, especially within the terms of magic, and bringing out a sense of confidence in your intuitive faculties as well. Spirit speak, you're going to have to do a little bit of ancestral work. We already knew this from the first reading that we did. So once again, I'm going to bring this to your attention. Honoring the ancestor. Okay? Honoring the ancestor. Very good book. Working with stones such as apatite, cavansite, kyanite. All very, very good. All very, very good for you. Don't forget we've got an element of channeling here, which is very clairaudient in its own way. Your incense that you're going to make, that you can also turn into a charm, is eyebright, frankincense, and mugwort. Water is your power element for this particular aspect, and air is your shadow element. So it makes sense that for water being your power element, then tea leaf reading comes into play. It's very, very much linked to water. That's earth and water. So the foundation, because you've got the Hierophant, of course. I would highly recommend making an ancestral altar for yourself, Amber. There is a way of doing that. If you end up acquiring the Honouring Your Ancestors book, it will tell you exactly how to make one, and I fully agree with the style in there because it is very Yoruba based, and you can't go wrong. Death. Oh, ancestors, yes. God, friendship. God could very much indicate divinity, but I do believe that in this deck there is also a goddess. So you might find yourself crossing paths with a masculine spirit or a deity that positively impacts your practice. Then we have friendship here, which is a very, very positive card, of course. It's such an odd little deck, isn't it? Make friends with your ancestors. And there we have it, Amber. Well, this was a very interesting session. We had a lot going on, a lot of messages, a lot of things to explore. Some suggestions made of crystals, herbs, botanicals as well. Books were suggested. A little channeled message, a little vision of a past. I want to say past life, but I do feel it might be a little bit ancestral. So very warrior-esque type of energy. Tea leaf reading came up, very earth-centric practices thanks to your Major Arcana card. Water being your power element, air being your shadow element, stripping things back, looking at things from an alternative perspective, really trying to discern between those bird calls, finding out and understanding more your signs, the way that the information, your psychic information will be presented to you. That's perhaps the biggest hurdle, is being able to discern just natural noise with spiritual messages. You're going to need to be paying attention there. So working with those particular stones is going to help you, as well as perhaps making that charm. It's going to be of benefit to you as well. So Amber, we've reached the end of your spirit work session. I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed this session and that I have given you something to go on, something that you can explore. If you have any questions whatsoever, please do not hesitate to contact me. And in the meantime, I am wishing you so much love, luck, peace, and joy. Big love to you. Take care, have fun, and look after yourself, Amber. Mwah. Bye.